Welcome to session 10 of Journey into Indian Country, Entrepreneurial Opportunities and Cultural Tourism. In today's session, Dan Nanakin, Quantum Matheson, and I will discuss how our organizations establish a team of cultural consultants and performers. I'd like to thank the IDRS project, and I would also like to introduce myself, Tats Halach, Inam Wanikwas Kusnim Kasnuat, Soyapo Wanikwas Station Morphine, Tats Pa'ain. What I said is, good afternoon. My name is One Who Takes Care of Water, also known as Station Morphine. Welcome. I would also like to send out a couple reminders. We do promote the webinars as an interactive segment for questions and answers, and we would also like for you to use the chat box to introduce yourself and where you're from. And then also throughout the webinar series, if you do happen to have something that sparks your interest that you would like more information on, please go ahead and leave it in the chat box and we will try to answer your questions. We're going to try and leave 15 minutes at the end of the hour series to answer any questions that you might have. We typically always go over, so in order to be respectful of your time, we will try to get through the information and then also to your questions. So I am owner and operator of Nez Perce Tourism, LLC. My grand opening was March 29th of 2019. So Nez Perce Tourism provides a warm welcome to Nimipu country, where guests can experience a true sense of place with the Nimipu, and it's the people, the Nez Perce. Radiating with cultural wisdom, Nez Perce Tourism is the only place in the world where you will hear our side of the story, witness the stories of our ancestors, and receive legendary hospitality founded in our cultural understanding of honor and respect. I see my Nez Perce Tourism as an economic driver in Nimipu country and as a cultural and educational connection to ensure a bright future for future generations. It's also essential that our children are a part of Nez Perce Tourism. From planning and implementation to experience and deeper connection to our culture, land and water, the Nez Perce youth is a huge part of who we are. We also offer an elder to youth mentorship called Heartbeat, to where we ask our youth and our elders to walk alongside each other to learn our teachings. Some of the things that we share with our own people aren't going to be the exact experience that we share with our visiting guests. So just to be very clear on that. We do have a very sensitive cultural line that we oftentimes do not pass and do not cross. Sometimes there are stories within our own genders. There could be stories that are for our young men that I've never heard because I'm a young woman. So we're very sensitive with the information that we share within our own people and then that we also share within our guests. But now is the time that Nimipu, all tribes, share our story with cultural integrity at the forefront. A part of sharing our story is embedded inside of our DNA, and the indigenous people who choose to share their story are very good at it. But through the sharing of stories comes a great responsibility and also sometimes a hardship when it comes to historical traumas. So I want folks to know that historical trauma is a very real thing, and it does take time for folks, individuals, to work through that, just like I have in my life as a young Nimipu Ayet and now a business owner. So just be very familiar with that and be very respectful. Next, I would like to introduce Dan Nanamkin. He is Okanagan, Arrowhead Lakes, Willawa Nez Perce from Chief Joseph Band of Nimipu. He resides on the Colville Indian Reservation. For 20 years, he has served in education and community building as a teacher, director, indigenous cultural educator. For 30 years, he has been traveling across the nation as a powwow dancer, drummer, and composer of songs. More recently, he has been seen on the front lines of Standing Rock and across the nation as a performance artist leading an humanitarian effort towards unity and indigenous rights. Currently, he is the director of the Young Warrior Society based in Nespelem, where he has created a unique education approach of self-sovereignty and self-resilience for Indian tribal communities and indigenous youth. For the future, he is working on several books and his upcoming TED Talk and future camps and educational presentations he is working on, with a possibility to start up towards ecotourism. He is also in TV documentaries and featured films. Dan also manages the Big River Society Dance Performance Group, which is educational performances near the Grand Coulee Dam in California. So thank you for joining us today, Dan. Our second guest presenter today is Quanah Matheson. He is a Coeur d'Alene and Lakota Sioux. He is enrolled Coeur d'Alene tribe and is currently the Cultural Tribal Affairs Director at the Coeur d'Alene Casino and Resort Hotel, where he helps the cultural tourism program. He is the cultural director for the tribe for many years and oversaw historical testimony, language, and the cultural resources management program. He is also the chairman for the nonprofit Sacred Encounters Group that built the Interpretive Center in Cataldo, Idaho, that tells the story of contact between the Black Robes and the tribe. So we'll go ahead and share a little bit of information about yourself, Dan, and what your roles are in the tourism industry, please.
Well, my name is Dan Nampkin. It's my English name. I'm known to the land here. Thunder and lightning. I'm really happy to join you and get to see my brother down there, Quanah. Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you, bro.
Respect for both you guys today and to everything that you're doing here, and trying to create awareness and education. And like you said, it's also some delicate and things that we have to be mindful of, and what we're trying to do is create this bridge of education and awareness. And I think it's really important, especially in modern, society. We see all the things that are going on and taking place across the country. So creating this awareness is really important and vital to keep our sacred ways of life, our sovereignty intact, and cultural awareness. So our youth won't have to live through some of the racism, that and stereotypes that we have had to. So I've worked in the film industry and had my opportunity to create that stand. And in the books that I'm hoping to write here this summer, that's also information that I hope to bring out there to create education and information. And through our dance and performances, cultural performances, that's an opportunity for us to have a platform to talk with, many non-Indigenous relatives, and spreading, our word and the wealth of, the history of our people, that's often misunderstood. So that's the avenues that I hope to do, is to create connections, through our historic territories, that we were removed from at one time. How do we get back to our sacred lands that we once inhabited and lived and thrived on? But now, Indigenous people there, that's the challenge, is how do we create those relationships and do it in a good way, beneficial for both sides. So that's what I'm apparently trying to do here at this time.
Thank you, Dan, for just briefly explaining the importance of the roles and responsibilities that you have as a sovereign person in sharing the stories of the peoples that you represent. Quanah, will you please share with us some of your roles and responsibilities and a little bit about your company? I did notice that you guys are just running with the activities that you guys have planned for this summer. It doesn't seem like you're skipping a beat at all. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your roles and what you've got going on this summer.
Yeah, Katsiaya, Stacia, and White, Dan. It's good to see you guys. And I'll just introduce myself real quick. Say, Chestwa Hendedak Joaquin. Good afternoon, whoever's listening in the virtual world. And Hiswiswa Quanah Matheson, Tawizi Ta Wakan. My name is Quanah Matheson. My Indian name is Tawizi Ta Wakan. And I'm just happy to be here, and I'm happy to participate and share whatever I can on behalf of furthering this cause. And some of the things that I do in terms of cultural tourism is really trying to garnish respect of the land while taking these people out, usually non-Indians, to our landscape, to our rivers, to our lakes, to our landscape, and allowing them to enjoy themselves either through a boat ride, fishing, a hike, bicycling. And at the same time, we always share responsibility. We always share what it means to be a steward of the land and what it means to have an awareness about yourself, and always sharing too a little bit about who we are as a Native people. And I think all people of the land have something to share. And I think Indian people, where we have a heart, we have a feeling, and we just share that with our visitors in order to educate and hopefully bring respect, and then ultimately celebrate together. And hopefully, we can live on this earth for many, many more generations because of the efforts that we bring to our Indian brothers and sisters and non-Indian brothers and sisters. And hopefully that goes a long ways to have clean water, clean air, and clean food.
All right, Katsiaya, for your intros, folks, and just helping to further explain that responsibility that we do hold in this very important job and lifestyle that we choose to live. So Native American homeland, culture, and people. It's very important for our allies that you, one, recognize and understand that if you live, work, or visit the United States, that you are on Indigenous land. No matter where you are, from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic, north, south, east, west, just know that you are on tribal land. So as of February of 2020, that we had 574 federally recognized Indian tribes. I do believe that there have been several more other tribes and also thousands, perhaps even millions of bands and Indigenous people here in the United States. And then right now we have over 310 reservations. And so if you look at the picture, every single piece of the United States is covered in red. And that's because that is all Indigenous land. It is Indigenous land. I don't want to use it in a past tense because it is still our land. These are the connections and the stories that are embedded inside of us as Indigenous people. So when we bring people to these places, whether they're tribal or non-tribal, they oftentimes can feel that connection through us. So it's just very important that we continue to amplify our voices in our storytelling mediums, in our art mediums, such as, weaving, beading, performing arts, storytelling, I said oral histories. There's all kinds of different ways that we can communicate what is ours through the intelligence of our ancestors. And so they are so impactful in my life because this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, is for them. When I was told by the Spirit that this is what I was supposed to do for the destiny in my life, I didn't believe it. And I am thinking, I'm not an expert in culture at all, but I do know people who are, and that is our ancestors. Therefore, I have those gifts, those talents, those stories in me. And sometimes until I hear them, they'll be brand new, but I'll feel like I've known these places and I've heard these stories before. And that doesn't just go for me as a Nez Perce woman. It goes for every Indigenous person in here, whether they grew up on or near their homelands or they grew up in the city. Those stories and that information, that knowledge is stored in them. We just need to help bring it out of them. And I think that's a lot where our cultural identity sometimes is a key role for tourism, because it also helps enlighten and lift the spirits of our own people once they're reminded of how strong and resilient and smart our ancestors are. The second picture on this slide shows you a list of the 5 tribes of Idaho. So you'll see that we have the Coeur d'Alene, Nimiipuu, Shoshone-Bannock, Shoshone-Paiute, and Kootenai. But you'll also see in between the Coeur d'Alene and Nez Perce, there's a Palouse tribe, and there's a Kalispel up on top, and then you can also see the Northern Paiute. So there's all kinds of different tribes integrated and who are from the state of Idaho long before Idaho became a state. And on the third photo, you will notice the Nimipu, the Nez Perce territorial homeland. So you'll see in the darker tan that we've gone up into Canada. Our homeland reaches over to the Pacific Ocean, down into Buffalo country in Wyoming, Nevada, Montana, and all these places. So that's our territorial homeland that we occupy and occupied at one point. You will see that in the lighter green, the 1855 treaty with the U.S. government cedes us land that we are able to hunt, fish, and gather on for until the end of time. And so those are just really important things, especially when we have relationships with our local, state, and federal agencies. It's very important that they understand these treaty boundaries, but they also understand the articles within the treaty so we can better promote and protect our homeland. You will notice the final reservation boundaries is the darker green, and it just continues to get smaller and smaller and smaller. But you'll notice that the 1863 Thief Treaty reduced our homeland by 90%. And that is the current Nez Perce reservation that we live on now. But it is very important, it's vital that folks recognize and honor whose native homelands they're on. Some of the things that I love about working with Dan and Kuana is that a lot of these places we're all familiar with because these could have been potentially gathering places for multiple different nations and different peoples. So we're very connected to each other, and also with you, those who are listening. I'm sure that if you're from another tribe anywhere within the United States or even Hawaii, New Zealand, wherever you might be, you have a similar connection as we do. So it's just so important that, and we're thankful that you're here joining us today. Next slide, please. So the Nimipu does have almost 3,500 tribally enrolled members right now. And we have about 25% of those folks living on or near the reservation. And a lot of the other folks live off the reservation. And so that's another important thing for Nez Perce tourism, is that we can provide opportunities even for our tribal people who haven't had the chance to go up the Snake River, who haven't had a chance to raft the riverbeds of the Salmon River. So there's all kinds of neat things that we have going on. But again, the economic impact for tribes and tourism is huge. In 2017, there were 164 privately owned tourism industry related businesses just in the Lewiston-Clarkston Valley. So 164 privately owned businesses, and not one of them were tribally owned and operated until Nez Perce Tourism opened its doors last year. So to be a woman, to be Indigenous, and to have your own business and to be able to tell our own story is huge, because 90% of those 164 privately owned businesses were sharing the story of the Nez Perce, and not one of those people were Nez Perce or descendants. So non-tribal people are sharing our story from their perspective, just as it has been done for over 200 years now, specifically with the Lewis and Clark expedition and their great documented journals that they have. I mean, if you read that information, it's wonderful that it was documented the way it was. I mean, they found 278 different new plant species when they visited our area. And they talk about some of the landscapes and what it looks like and what they saw, the wildlife, the weather, all kinds of different things that we can utilize today with global warming, with place names, with things like that. But that's not our perspective. Our perspective is different than Lewis and Clark's perspective. So I just want to make that very clear, that for our allies, for our potential collaborative partners that would like to work with tribes, just know that if you do want to invite us somewhere, that you do have our people sharing our voice, because it's a lot more impactful and it's a lot more meaningful that you're creating the space for us to share our stories. But just in the state of Idaho, the 5 Idaho tribes created over 13,000 jobs in Idaho's economy, 1.2 billion in annual sales, 21.3 million in annual wages and salaries. And then we've all have, just in the state of Idaho within our tribes, over 1 million unique visitors each year. So there is definitely a market for tourism. And I just want folks to understand that importance, that we have visitors that are already here. They come here every single year and they want to know more about Nimipu, about Colville, about Coeur d'Alene, about all, they want to know more about these people and these places. And I do absolutely love what the Nez Perce National Historical Park does. There's a lot of the Lewis and Clark Discovery Center. There's a lot of great facilities in place. And that's why I was excited for Kwana to share some of the things that he's done with the museum and sharing the story of the people, is because folks want to meet the people. They want to authentically see and feel and smell and visit with and shake hands with, if possible, the people of that area. It's just, they have such more of an impact than it would be with, meeting folks in a suit at a museum per se, which is also a great experience. But we've been working with the Nez Perce National Historical Park on getting performers and presenters inside their facilities to enhance our story, our voice, and then to enhance also the guest experience. Next slide, please. This slide just talks a little bit about what Nez Perce tourism offers and the importance of perpetuating Native American cultures. So I don't want to talk too much about the services that Nez Perce tourism provides, whether it's preserving our geoheritage or sharing our story with integrity. Again, I can never talk about enough, those sacred, secret places that we only share within our people, within our families. That could be, gathering spots. It could be our hunting spots. It could be our ceremonial sites and things like that. But it's just very important that we understand, as people living this lifestyle, that there are some things that we will never share, and that's okay, because it's not intended for every ear. I do want to talk a little bit again about the elder to youth mentorship and how important it is for us to continue to have our young people come alongside us in this walk called life. And the knowledge that our elders hold, and the feeling that I can see when they're connected. It's so powerful and it's so meaningful, just to be able to be a small piece of that connection. So that's what tourism, another segment that tourism can offer. Next slide, please. So for our allies who do plan on helping to preserve the Native American history, I do want you to, to connect with your tribal communities, whether it's a tourism related business, an entrepreneur, whether it's the tribe, but somebody, I can't express how important it is that you need to work with your tribes. I don't care what it's for. You probably should learn some of the cultural values that our tribe has, and maybe you'll understand them, but maybe you won't live that way. But just even being exposed to some of our cultural values will completely change the spirit that you have when you look at things. You'll start looking at your yard a different way. As I'm watching my neighbor mow his lawn, he'll have a different connection and a different sense of pride in what he's doing when he feels that connection to the land. It's very important that you work with integrity and transparency on projects you may be working on. I know that Dan just submitted a grant proposal for something he's working on. So if you have something that you're getting ready to, a new project you're getting ready to propose, try and see if you can get a hold of the local tribes and to see how they can get involved in it as well. And I can guarantee you it'll help enhance your project, and it'll strengthen the community relationships that you have with your tribal people. And internal assessments is always something that's very important for us to do as business owners. An internal assessment, one that I did, was based on 4 factors. One was kind of what information to share that's secret, not to share that's sacred, what's kind of commonly known with the Nez Perce people, and then what's already been widely shared, to make sure that we stay in those kind of unseen lines that we never cross. And so it's always important for whatever project you might be working on that you do an assessment with the folks that you'll be working with. And also that we have authentic representation. Again, like I said, it's very important that we perpetuate our voice throughout the guest experience or the project experience. So make sure that we're there in some of the planning and implementing that you might have going on. So next I'm going to go to another question. And I'll start with Dan. So the question is how has the field of tourism prevention changed over the course of your career? Tell us a little bit about where you started out in this industry back in California.
Well, actually, it started off here in Grand Coulee. Um, we have the Grand Coulee Dam, which is known as one of the wonders of the world. So each year we have a big amount of tourists, that travel from around the world to come here, and we wanted to capitalize on some of that because we also live in a area with high unemployment rates, and travel is another issue for many families. So we wanted to offer something where families could come and participate and enjoy themselves too, because a lot of the kids are just starting out dancing and they don't get to travel the powwow circuit, and the local powwows are only 2 or 3 times during the summer locally at that time. And so we did something to engage our local communities, but also offer the visiting tourists an opportunity to explore our cultural presentations and history. So we did that here, and at that time we wanted to honor the Columbia River, and so we called ourselves the Big River Society, and that's kind of how we got our start. So we had the drumming and the dancing and flute and storytelling and song and dance. From that point on, I moved to California, and down there they had the Owens Valley Career Development Center, and they were in need of cultural education, and they didn't have that. So we were able to offer that. And so we started to work with the local youth and their families. And at that time, my Latiwa, Paris, and Cassia, they moved down there with us in a small little town called Ridgecrest. And, and along with the rest of my family, we began to offer cultural dance performances to schools, colleges, and, many community events, and also teach classes. So I think that also allowed us to, move up a little bit further, and to learn how to engage with the youth and engage with the communities, and develop, fun dances, that really created an atmosphere of wonder for the people who watched us. So that's where we got our start.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. I know for Nez Perce Tourism, we are putting together some organized dances, I guess you could say, with same sex and then men and women's dance. But there's always that sense of entertainment that we have to add in as well when it comes to cultural presentations. We can have just a wonderful, very well-spoken, knowledgeable Nez Perce person presenting, but sometimes that's not it's not very interesting, especially when you had a good meal, a good traditional meal or something. We have to make sure that we also put in that that performing arts piece, that entertainment piece, but we're also still respectful. So being able to blend and merge those together are things that I know that we are working on as we kind of change the dynamics in some of the things that we do. But folks really like to be involved, whether it's in a circle dance, just come up and do the side step with us, and what that means to our non-tribal guests and our tribal guests as well. But just making sure that we kind of mix up our presentations. But yeah, I've been talking to some of your folks that you worked with, Cassia and Paris both, and how we can better enhance some of our programs, because when you're in the tourism industry, you need to be able to compete, and there's lots of other non-cultural things that we compete against as well, but nothing as authentic as ours. So Kawana, Working in this industry for as long as you have, what are some things that have changed over the course of your career, or how did you get started in the tourism industry?
Yeah, so I think my tribe kind of started doing some performances in the 60s, and we have videos that are actually on YouTube. And when Dan was talking, I kind of just remembered that they had performances over in Cataldo, Idaho, telling a story about the coming of the Black Robes. And so they've been doing that for a while. But back then, it was a little bit different. It was focused on presenting a certain story. And I think stories don't really evolve through time, but I think we do. Like what you're saying, Stacia, sometimes you have to add in a entertainment value to it at the same time holding that line of respect. So when I came on, probably about 5 years ago, we didn't have cultural tourism, but I started to mention it because when I was at the tribe as cultural director, it was all about preservation. It was about preservation and enhancement of our language, our archaeology, and somehow educating people through those things and holding on to those things and educating our people. When I came here to the casino, the business part of that equation, I started to work on. And so I knew that preservation had to evolve into an educational aspect and kind of evolve into a performance aspect to share what we have. Like what you said, the Nez Perce are unique, and Dan's people are unique. And so we have a unique language, unique culture. So we try to share that very respectably. And, we talk to our elders, we talk to people. And me, I grew up within it. So I kind of you just kind of inherently know. You inherently know what is good and what is not good, what is respectful and what is crossing the line of kind of like, nah, it's kind of hokey, we probably shouldn't share that. And sometimes there's people here at my work, sometimes they'll make comments like, maybe, hey, how do we do this? I'm like, no, we can't do that. And so I'm glad I'm here too. And we have a non-Indian in our cultural tourism program, and she's learning where that line, sits and stands. And so, but I think, I think it does change a little bit over time, because this past year at our Winter Blessing, I actually brought in LA actors from Los Angeles. They came in and did one of our traditional stories. And I think in the past, maybe that wouldn't have been done, but talking with him and the respect that he had, and the reason was to make a story alive for our children, to make it more sit in the mind, sit in the heart. And they had native actors. So it wasn't like it was these people coming from LA that didn't know anything about Indian culture. It was actually native actors. They just weren't Coeur d'Alene. But I gave them a story. I said, all right, I want you guys to develop this story. And I said, humor is a big part of it. And that's the part we're going to kind of focus on. And traditionally, our stories are done in the winter for a specific reason. So we hold that respect, and we got it done. And even though, they were actors, they were respectful. And I shared everything about why we do that in the wintertime. And we got it done. And I think through that evolution, I think we educate people just a little bit more, and we're keeping to the respects of our respective tribes.
Hey, I'm so glad you mentioned the Winter Blessing, Kwana. It was by our surprise that Nez Perce Tourism was also invited to this very same event. And just seeing the mindset that the Coeur d'Alene tribe has in cultural preservation and tourism, it's not about all about them and about the financial aspect that they can receive from the visiting guests and how many people they can get into the casino. You can see that they have a big vision on what it is, what Pacific Northwest travel looks like. And I'm just very excited to start working with you guys, and hopefully soon as a vendor for some of our Snake River tours, but just to be invited up to Coeur d'Alene country for this winter blessing, knowing the importance of us sharing our stories during the seasonal time was huge for me and my troop, my performers. We had one of our drum groups go up and we were able to perform our sneak up. And that's something that originated from the Nimiipuu people, but is practiced all through the powwow trail, sometimes as a category for the round bustle. So it's an honor that folks are recognizing where that came from, and that does come from the Nimiipuu. And it was neat being able to have that invite, and it's just continuing to create connection with each other. And we share group tours, we share information on how we can better enhance our guest experience, whether I have folks coming down from Spokane, whether they have folks coming up from Boise or whatnot. We're just going to make sure that we blend and work together, because I think as Indigenous people, those are some of the things that we have to continue to do is work together to make a bigger impact. But Nez Perce Tourism did put together 5 pillars of cultural tourism. And that first one, you can guess, it's going to be land. And Dan and Kwana, they didn't stress it enough, and neither can I, that identifying, understanding, and knowing our traditional homeland, our relationship with those places, and also our place names hold a big value with our language. Place names is a something that connects. We don't name things, First Street, Second Street, Christopher Columbus Street. It's not about the people. It's not about the numbers. It's about the resources that are in that area. What can help us identify this unique place? And it's the Nez Perce place names. It's in Nez Perce that we get to share. But cultural preservation inside those names is very important. The second pillar is language, linguistics, intellectual, culture, identity. Here on the local level in Nimiipuu country, inside of our early childhood to Head Start, all the way up to college institutions, we share Nez Perce language. So it's offered as a course at WSU, U of I, Lewis and Clark State College, and North Idaho Indian or Northwest Indian College in Lapwai. They also have a Bellingham location as well. But it's very important that we protect our language and we promote our language, because a lot of our fluent language speakers are going away. They're going home to the Creator, and the knowledge that they have and just the pronunciation of our words is very important for us. So language is a second pillar. The third pillar is the people. The people of our past, us today here, and then the people of our future, which is our children, our future generations. The fourth pillar, and this is something I always like to add in for our allies, it's very important that we implement policy, that we perpetuate our sovereignty, but we need help. We do. We need our non-tribal people to remind folks of the landscape and the sacredness tied to these places that they live on now and that they're visiting. And again, I'll mention it for local, state, and federal agencies. We need your help creating policies to help protect our cultural preservation and perpetuation. Protection is the fifth pillar, and that is very important. And this is something we do socially. It's something we do spiritually. It's something we've always done historically. So please use these if you ever need to, add to them, take away. But this is always really important. 5 things to focus on when it has anything to do with our culture. Does anybody have anything to add? Is there one that sticks out to you or one that you can identify with the most, Dan or Kwana?
Well, I think I was just writing these notes down because I think, for one, the linguistics of the traditional homeland and place names and relationship is important. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do with the idea I'm working at with one of these grants, is to create some tourism locally here. And the idea is to go out to our traditional homelands that we were removed from, and to begin, that our own tribal tour into our traditional territories, but also to remind us of our relationship to that land, because that was taken away from us generations ago, and we did have place names. We had sacred sites, and we had that relationship to that land, but that's kind of been a disconnection, and so I'm trying to prevail that through working with the people who currently live in those towns, in those areas, to form connections on how we can go back and begin, just like you said, with the non-indigenous people through their, who homesteaded on that land, that we can work together to create, hopefully fishing, hunting, gathering, areas for people. And so we'll also eventually have more conducive working relationship that will be economical benefits for both sides, as well as these 5 pillars that you mentioned. So I just wanted to drop that in for something I'm hoping to work towards here. And this, I'm not working with the tribe. I'm not a tribal department, so I'm kind of at the grassroots. So that means I'm doing a lot of fundraising. I'm creating things, from the ground up, as a sole proprietor at this time. So it's a lot of work, and I know that you yourself had to do all of these things yourself, when you began your business there. And I could just testify to the amount of work, and it's a lot of pressure and a lot of learning, and grateful for you sharing, your resources and knowledge. So thank you. Katsiaya.
Thanks, Dan. Kwana, do you have anything that sticks out to you with these 5 pillars of cultural preservation and how it ties to tourism?
I think sovereignty is probably its own standalone pillar that kind of encompasses everything. The way, like my father told me when I was growing up, he says sovereignty, and he worked for 2 presidents. He were over in DC for quite a few years, and he kind of understood how sovereignty works from a government level, how tribal people kind of interpret it, and what he was told by veterans and things like that. And I think sovereignty is just a wonderful thing. And he always told me when I was growing up, he said, sovereignty comes from our Creator. He says, our Creator is sovereign. He says, he made us sovereign. And he says that through sacrifice, through our warriors and our veterans, our sovereignty is perpetuated. So through their blood, through their sacrifice, we have to be respectful. And we're sovereign individuals. And through that sovereignty, we should perpetuate our language, our culture, our children, our grandparents, our land, our waters, and protect and provide for them. And I think that's a big theme for me in terms of how I try to go about all things, but even like cultural tourism, and how I try to formulate an idea to pass on to visitors and our young people. And I think that's just a good sticking point to have.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I know that sovereignty is something that I think that we can do better of explaining and instilling in our young people, whether it be the one-on-one relationships that we have, even within my family. There's 7 of us, brothers and sisters, and I'm the oldest. So my sister, Sierra Green, we try to start with ourselves first, and then, our family, and then our community. But it's just so important that we should, all 3 of us, everybody that's on, we should get together and work on. And I think there have been some folks over near the Pacific Ocean working on kind of Washington tribal history, but within the school systems. So like for us, it would be Washington, Idaho, Montana, all the places that our ancestors occupy, but in how we can involve that into a lesson-based curriculum. And so I know that for Nez Perce Tourism, we oftentimes get invited to come into anything from, old folks' homes to kindergarten classes to come and give presentations. But I just got a message in my Facebook last week, and it was of a 5th grade teacher asking, how can she find out more information, and how can she navigate through some of those obstacles with a traditional history that she's teaching? And my question is, where are you starting the history class at? What year? And it typically is with the discovery of America. And so there's so much that we need to do, but this much time. So if we have some type of lesson base, and this is something that we could be able to write grants and things for as well, but just to help our young people understand and to have that relationship and respect of the places that they are now, because it's now their home. That we can coexist and live together in a very respectful way that our ancestors have taught us. But there's a lot of work to do, and it could get tiring for just a few people doing it. But as we continue to promote, I think that's why tourism is so helpful too, is because our visiting guests can go home and sit inside their circles of non-tribal people and say, did you know that this was a homeland of the Nimiipuu or Colville or Coeur d'Alene or whatever? And a sacred site of their ancestors is right over there. Their bones could be buried there. How can we help protect these places? How can we help promote? What do they need from us as non-tribal people? It's their responsibility, hopefully, to go inside those circles that we don't have access to right now, and to help promote the sovereignty and the preservation of who we are as a people. But gosh, it's so innovating and exhilarating doing this type of work, because we are making an impact. Whether some folks don't believe in tourism and that we should be sharing, we are in education. Let's face it, that's something that is a big also part of what we do in tourism, is educating our own communities and our guests as well. But one of the strengthened partnerships and collaborations that we did this last year, and we won an award for it, was we were asked to be a part of the Lewiston Art Walk, downtown Lewiston. And there were a ton of different folks that got together. It was a partnership between the Nez Perce National Historical Park, Nez Perce Tourism, the Washington Idaho Symphony, the Lewiston Civic Theater, Side Notes program. So a lot of people got together and created this 3-dimensional weekend celebrating the region's culture. And I was so glad that somebody asked us to be part of that. And comes to the point where if I see something, say for example, if you guys have a fair. So locally, we have a fair every single year since as long as I can remember, called the Nez Perce County Fair. And that's where all the 4-H programs come together, and they have their big sale for the year, where the carnival comes, where there's multiple theaters of performing arts and concerts, and a lot of people gathering to enjoy themselves, but there isn't a Nez Perce represented there. So for 2 years now, I've been doing market research for 2, been open for 1. I've been trying to get my leg in the door to say, why don't we offer an Nez Perce blessing at the beginning? Why don't we have some of our performers filling some of those stages? And so even these local spaces that we aren't a part of now, it's our responsibility to get out there and to be the forefront, because we should be. Not that we need to take over a big event or start our own to compete with them, but we need to be part of these spaces. And it's important for us to keep knocking on those doors. I came from the sales industry and marketing, and I was told 100 no's before I was told 1 yes. So I'm very used to being told no. But I am very resilient in the fact that I'll keep asking and I won't stop. And so that's just another example of something that we could do in collaboration with something that's already been going on and is successful, just to get more recognition and more awareness out there for educating our local folks. But yeah, this is neat. We received the number 3 of the year, basically award for this program that we did. And you see a picture of me. I said, I had all kinds of cultural performers, and they wanted to use the one of me in my fast and fancy outfit. I was like, gosh, dang it. But and that's one of my mentors told me. They said that you need to be okay with being the face, because it is your company, and you need to be okay with being in front of people, whether it's criticism or whether it's whether it's a good thing. So I'm kind of getting used to it, but I do look like Juan Matheson. He's a wonderful MC. He can get up in front of a bunch of people, whether he's nervous or not, probably not, but you would never know it, just because he's so proud and he knows where he comes from. That's the type of inspiration that I can see in the local area. Dan Anakin doing his dance troops, and he plays the flute and storytelling and dances and all these things. It's just like, man, these are things that are in me too. I need to be able to be confident in these. But one more question. And so if you know of, I guess, what's the best advice that you could give a young person or a young professional who is interested in going into business or preservation or the tourism industry? What's a piece of advice, or what skills do you need to be able to be successful in this field? We'll go ahead and start with you, Dan.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
All right. Well, I think knowledge is key, so it just learning what we can, from our elders, from our protocols, from our tribal ways and means of our people, because, there are boundaries, and there are certain things that we can and cannot share. And there are, just like Quanah said, certain times that stories are told. And so there's a lot of protocols, of respect and challenges in walking in these two worlds. So for the young person, I would say, to get knowledgeable, and educated through our tribal education, so, we pronounce names, correctly, and have the meanings, to these names that also enrich the experience of those who come to learn. And like you said, you got to have thick skin, because, even if you're trying to educate and do things, that people won't always support you, even your local people, they may even be against you, and that's hurtful, and it's also very hard and to find in local support sometimes. So you got to have a clear objectives, on what you're trying to accomplish, and what you're willing to share. So it just creating that picture, that's clear to people, so they understand, okay, this ain't all about, giving out all the goods and the secrets and all of those things. It's about educating, and how we win through educating. That's creating allyship to help us, through sometimes, the economic disparity that we have on our reservations, that, we could draw in tourism dollars to support our tribal businesses and entrepreneurs. So I think we could create, awareness in that way. And so that's what I would suggest, for somebody getting into the business.
Thank you. I'm so glad you mentioned the kind of the hardships that come with being an entrepreneur, because it does get hard sometimes. But when you've been called to do something, those doors are going to open, and no matter what or who stands in your way, eventually they will go, and you will be able to fulfill that. And I know there have been some times where I never wanted to give up, but I've been extremely discouraged because I was hurt by, some of my own people. But it's just out of discipline, I hope. And it's out of the love and misunderstanding that they have. And so it is very important that we're clear on what the mission, vision, and goals are of any project or organization that you might be pursuing. But go for it. I want as many Indigenous people to, fulfill their dreams and destiny, whether it's in tourism, preservation, a business, or not. We've all been called to do something. But I hope that this kind of help ignite something within you, because we do need more of us. We do need more Quanahs. We do need more Dans out all over the world doing what we do. So I promote cultural tourism all the way. But Quanah, what about you? What do you have to share with us?
I think you got to be a humble person, respectful. And like what Dan says, there's a lot of information to know and understand. And approaching that with some humbleness and respect goes a long ways. And I think being very honest with yourself in order to have confidence of what you're presenting and know where you lack, know where you need to keep learning. And I think the honesty part goes a long ways with your performers too. And if you have performers and if you lose their respect and they don't trust you, you're not going to have any performers. And so you really have to be a certain type of individual to kind of go forth. And, you know, I really commend you too, Stacia. You know, the way you speak and talk and the way you have respect for your performers and for your people and for your tribe and for your traditions. You could see it, you know, in the way you express yourself. So I think the people that are watching this webinar, I think they can kind of see in a sense of maybe they see themselves doing something like this to where they can educate people and where they can have these businesses that help our people. Because some of our dancers and some of our performers, some of our storytellers, they sometimes they can't hold jobs. Sometimes they can't go, they're not educated. And so it's hard for them to kind of take care of their families. And when a business like yours and a business like mine, we give them a space to fulfill their purpose, to do their artwork for people, to dance, to sing, to tell stories, and to kind of see them feel good and smile and be able to have some money in their pocket to take care of their children. So I think it's a real beautiful thing. But I think respect and humbleness and honesty go a long ways.
Oh, thank you for sharing. Geez, get me choked up over here. Whew.
I'm sorry.
So yes, that's amazing. Just having that passion to pursue. And like Juana said, and Dan, you can feel it in people. You can feel it over the phone. And that's why when I first was asked about doing a webinar series, I was thinking, oh, I think we can make so much bigger of an impact when we're in front of people. And then COVID-19 hit and the pandemic, and where folks, you know, had to social distance and stay home. But that's the key, is that when somebody has passion and they have the knowledge and the humility, that you can still feel that through this live Facebook and webinars and Zoom meetings and things like that. So I'm thankful that I hope that you can just feel the passion. And I know that you guys have it too, or else we wouldn't be here. Because it is a lot of work, you know, spiritually and emotionally, but it's equally fulfilling. So thank you so much for joining me, fellas. Thank you to the IDRS Acorn Project. If you are interested in tuning into our next webinar series, it'll be August 11th, the same time, 12 to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And this session is going to reflect a journey into Indian country, entrepreneurial opportunities and cultural tourism, and how to price authentic experiences. Some things are very difficult to navigate through in your business model canvas and your pricing structure. So we just want to give you some ideas, some steps in how you can better feel confident in pricing your authentic experiences. And then go and check out the IDRS Acorn Project website. It's www.nativebiz.org. Dan Nanikin also is raising monies right now, so I want to get him an opportunity to get his plug-in. He does have a Facebook page. It's Dan Nanikin. The last name is Nanamkin. Dan Nanamkin. So please make sure that you go and check out his Facebook page, share some of the resources that he has, also why he is gathering monies. Also, Quanah Matheson with the Coeur d'Alene Tribe Resort and Casino. They have a whole list of events coming up this month, even next week. I believe it's the 16th. They'll be hosting an authentic dinner and presentation on site. So go and check out the Coeur d'Alene Casino website, Facebook page, book your tickets now. Nez Perce Tourism, we also have some upcoming tours available. Hear the Echoes of Our Ancestors Jet Boat Tour on Monday, the 13th. Here in Nimiipuu country in Clarkson, Washington. We'll be heading up to Buffalo Eddy. So there's a lot of very neat, authentic things happening right now. But but I cannot stress enough to support your Indigenous people. Make sure that their voices are heard and continue to work with us on projects that you may be pursuing. Again, Dan and Kwana, Lynn, IDR's Acorn Project, Imakis Katsiayao, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
At siya, Latiwa.